Everything NYC. We discuss different careers that you could obtain and the paths you could take to get to them. So today we'll discuss this one right here. Let's go.
All right, great. So thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're looking forward to this conversation. So let's start off with the introduction. So what exactly do you do and how long have you been doing it?
So my name is Jeannie Santiago. I was the director of recruitment within financial services for about 10 years. And basically what I did was I looked for individuals to fill in very targeted roles in regards to financial representative, advisory, portfolio management, wealth management, and estate management, and also leadership positions.
All right, thank you.
So I can see we're not getting the age.
No.
What exact steps did you take to become a recruiter? How did you get hired? And like, what was the path to getting there? Like college, like what do you have to do?
Well, first off, I didn't realize that a position like this existed. What happened is that I met another recruiter when I was about to complete college. And so I went to a career fair. The position that he was offering me wasn't a good fit for me at the time. However, we kept in contact. Fast forward a few years, the opportunity presented itself. He approached me. He introduced me to the managing partner in the #1 performing office in the nation for the organization. And, after meeting that individual, I was hired on the spot. And because I was what you would call a referral, I felt compelled to go above and beyond within my role. And as a result, I was promoted several times within 5 years.
You moved. Yeah. And then what's the clientele that you focus on? Like, who do you recruit exactly?
All different kinds of individuals, right? I think the most desired individuals are people that have personable skills. They understand how to speak to individuals. They understand the value of networking. So that could come in the form of someone who used to be an accountant. It could be someone who used to be a lawyer, who used to be a doctor, someone who used to be a business owner, so an entrepreneur, especially due to the nature of the roles. But it's not always necessary, right? So as long as you're extroverted, you know how to handle a conversation. In addition to that, you have the hunger and the drive to be successful. That would be what I would say would be the most desirable if you didn't have the background.
Mm-hmm. How does someone get recognized? Right. So let's say you have a position in mind, you're going after it, you're excited about this role that you see online. How in the world do you get recognized?
That's a great question. It depends on which avenue would this person be taking. Would it be through warm sourcing? So that means going to an event and making an impression in person? Or are you referring to a resume?
Well, let's say a resume. Let's say it's a position you see online, maybe Indeed, LinkedIn.
I love that question.
And you're so excited. There's something that just fits your background and your skills, and you decide to click apply and send that resume in.
That's an excellent question. So as someone who has seen thousands of resumes, I see the same mistakes over and over and over. So I also mentor individuals on how to create a resume. So what I traditionally tell people, because the first thing that makes a resume difficult to establish and build is because you want to put all the nooks and crannies in it, right? So what I tell my people, my mentees, is that you have to look at the resume as the trailer to the feature film. The feature film being the first interview, right? So always keep in mind that this person does not know you. So when you look at the resume, the top portion of the resume is prime real estate. So that means that's where you're going to put a summary if necessary. So if you have prior experience, a summary is not necessary. But if you're coming from a different background, please do put a summary. If you're currently in college, put a summary. If you're relocating, put a summary. Anything that would tell me that, hey, FYI, this is what you need to know. In addition to that, your achievements. If you're currently in college, that portion of your education should be on the top. However, if you have graduated, let's say, you graduated a year ago, that portion of education should go on the bottom. because it's no longer, it's relevant, but it's not something that I need to know that you're still currently in college. So once again, when it comes to licensing, very important, as long as it's relevant to the role. I cannot express to you how many times I've seen a resume, and let's say someone applies to a financial advisor role. Okay. And this person puts in their summary that they want to become a nurse. I'm not going to call you back, right? Because you have to understand the nature of my position, and that being, I have to look for the most qualified individuals. Not only that, we also have to think about retention. Everything we do is retention. So if I have to sit there and wonder that in a year or two, hypothetically, let's say you get that role as a nurse, I lose you. The corporation loses millions of dollars because within this particular kind of role, we pay for your licensing, 2 years of training and development, in addition to all different kinds of support systems. So we are investing in you. So we want to ensure that you're going to have longevity to us. So a recruiter is always thinking retention, retention, retention. So be mindful of what you say. What I traditionally tell my people, in the summary, you should always conclude, looking to establish my career, fill in the blank, depending on the industry that you're applying to. And then you're going to say for the place in the role, at place in the company. So that means you're going to have to write a ton of different resumes. One resume should not be sent out to millions of different jobs. That's how you do not get a call back, because it shows that you didn't make an effort to customize. So a little trick that a lot of people don't know about, but I feel like if people were to implement this, they'll see a lot more callbacks. When you look at a job description, when it says requirements and there's bullet points, you should be taking those skills that you currently have and mimic it from the requirements and implement it into your resume. And that gives you a good guideline in understanding what should and should not be in your resume.
So now there's strategies possibly. You could just copy the actual text from the description and paste it directly into your resume? I mean, because we all know there's an ATS system.
Not always.
Not always. Okay.
Depending.
So let's say if there is, and that system is going to review your resume before it reaches a human being. So do you recommend maybe just copying it, kind of pasting it somewhere on the resume? So
when it comes to traditional roles, well, first, let's take a step back, right? Because there's soft skills and hard skills. Hard skills are more technical. Yeah. So if you're going to apply to an IT position, you're going to go through an applicant tracking system, an ATS system. Whereas when it comes to soft skills, which sales, consulting, these are things that, have a lot to do with communication and relationships. With those particular roles, you're not going through an ATS system because AI can't understand if you have communication skills, if you're a friendly person, and all those things matter when you're in sales.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So could you talk to us a little bit about the work that you do with the people in the business, right? Because now I'm excited about this role. I placed my application in, and it goes through human resources before it reaches anyone in the business. So could you talk a little bit about maybe the conversations you have with the people in the business to get a grasp of the actual requirements and really understand what it is they're looking for at finding that ideal candidate?
Well, so when you're a recruiter, you only deal with a handful of positions, so you know them inside and out. So it's not necessary to really reach out to different individuals and say, hey, what is it that you're really looking for? I think it really depends on the corporation. Okay. All corporations function completely different. And so with the corporation I was affiliated with, we had constant contact. So I knew the managers. At some point, I probably hired the managers. And so being that I understood their style, I knew what kind of person would do well with what kind of manager. So, yeah.
like within a client, like what are the most important qualities you look for? Because I'm pretty sure you're not going to take anybody. So what are the most important things? And what if you see somebody with potential? Like how do you tweak them or fix them to like get them to a good level?
Well, okay, so if I have an interview with someone and I think that they're fantastic, there are some things that we have to address first, right? Because every single candidate is going to go through something called a POP screen. So that's an assessment test.
Yeah.
If someone were to fail that, at that point now we have to really like deep dive and look at if you have debt, if you have any alimony. We have to really deep dive into personal items that have to do with your finances, mainly because we're dealing with finance, right? You're going to deal with social security numbers, bank accounts, and we have to ensure that you're in good financial standing. So that's something that if you're a great candidate during that first interview, you fail the POP, but you have good financial standing, we can actually override that. But if you don't have good financial standing, there's nothing I could do. The same thing goes for visas. A lot of corporations will not hire people with visas. So I think, you have to be mindful of some of the things that you have in your background in order to consider someone as someone you would vouch for to move forward in the process.
You have to see something in them. So, and this career do you consider it like a flexible career, as in you could get as much done? Like, let's say the first 6 months, you recruit thousands upon thousands, you get them hired, you get jobs done. Then the rest of the year, you could just like relax. Like the whole year, you could like balance it out. So it's not flexible.
No, you do not take the rest of the year off. No. So basically, there's seasons. So what happens during Christmas and New Year's, it's typically slow because a lot of people don't tend to look for positions during that period of time. During the summer, it's slow because people are not looking for positions at that time. It's usually the fall and spring. Also, depending on the role. So if you're dealing with interns, what we're going to do is starting in the fall, let's say we want to have an internship program in the spring. That's when we're going to start interviewing, designing the program, and moving forward with the candidates that we want. Because remember, they have to go through a 7-part interview process.
Okay.
And they have to get background checks. And they also have to get licensed before they can even start.
So it's not quick. It's not like 1, 2, 3. It's like a whole
everything
process.
is, So just for us to hire one person, it could take 3 to 4 months, even 6.
Even 6.
Even
so
6.
That means it's very intrusive. That means you really have to believe in this person.
Yeah, it's a career.
Yeah.
It's not a job.
Yeah. I see. And does this require you to come in, like an office, remote? Like how does this physically, what do you have to do?
Well, the training and development is in person, being that you're dealing with relationships, whether it be with individuals, businesses, whatever the case may be when it comes to your clientele. You don't want to be in the office all the time, right? If you're in the office all the time, that means you're not doing well within your role. You're always out in the field. So that means you're going to networking events, you're having lunches, you're having dinners, you're going to galas, you're going to balls, you're doing all different kinds of like workshops. So there's a huge educational portion because a lot of people are not well versed when it comes to finance. So you have to act as that guru to get out there and teach individuals.
Okay, that's interesting. So if somebody's coming up, like somebody young, 17, 18, how would you advise them? Would you advise them to take this career path, or would you say, no, do something else? Like,
if they have a love for finance, if they enjoy being a self-starter, so not being micromanaged, if they're looking for a career and not a job, then I would highly recommend this. We've had people that were able to purchase their own home within the first 2 years of being with us.
That's a good job.
So it is lucrative, right? As long as you do the work, you can make the money. However, I would say if you feel like you're thin-skinned, this is not for you. If you're looking for a job, like a 9 to 5, this is not for you. because you live by the calendar. So depending on what the availability is of your clientele, what kind of events are happening, what are some of the side activities you're taking part in? Because remember, the educational portion, you can find yourself working Saturdays, Sundays, all 7 days out the week, right? Because what you would find, once again, when it comes to Christmas and New Year's, it's typically slow for everyone across the board because people have to buy gifts. And so at that point, they're not really thinking about investments as much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How do you navigate around market cycles? Because we saw recently with the great resignation, people were leaving their jobs, moving over to different companies, and receiving better pay packages. So I know that at that point in time, it could be very difficult. And then when you fast forward to where we are now, you're seeing in the news that companies are actually laying people off, right?
Yeah,
So it's been a shift. So how do you balance between the different market cycles of where we saw COVID and where we are now, where companies are starting to cut back a bit?
That's a great question. So when I first came into the business, there was a recession happening. And so what was interesting about the corporation that I was affiliated with, they weren't publicly traded. So a lot of people that were coming from different organizations were coming from publicly traded organizations due to layoffs. So during that period, when it comes to recessions, we're pretty much recession proof. If anything, we see an influx. We actually do better as a result. However, with COVID, it presented a whole slew of issues that I've never experienced before in my life. A lot of people did not want to work, and so that made my life just a little bit harder, but not impossible. I think addressing the needs of what, potential candidates wanted. So, for instance, having a little more attention, right? Versus when everything was normal. Yes, you did receive attention, but I was also dealing with 40 other candidates. During COVID, that actually decreased. So now I have more time to say, hey, okay, do you have a problem with your background check? Let's deep dive in this, and just give them a little more one-on-one attention. And I feel like that showcased such an improvement in the sense of establishing trust and people understanding, hey, I'm not doing this by myself. Because when you do have a large amount of candidates, it's hard to cater to everyone.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a large amount of candidates. So I'm thinking, is it more of a proactive approach or reactive? And by proactive, I'm thinking about you're actively on LinkedIn and recruiting people from other companies?
Nonstop.
Or are you spending a majority of your time reviewing the incoming resumes and applications for various positions?
You do everything. You do everything. You live on LinkedIn. You're establishing those relationships, especially if you're a networker. As a recruiter, you have to network. So you're constantly out in the field, even with the new agents. And so basically I would teach them how to network. And through that process, other people I would meet and they would say, hey, I'm interested in an opportunity. And I would be able to obtain people that way through LinkedIn, and also through traditional means like job posts, and also through referrals. Right. So you wear many different hats. In addition to that, I sit on roundtables where other representatives of different corporations collaborate, and we all bring different resources. And let's say we'll have like a special event where we're going to hold information about how to get your dream position. And it would be me and several other organizations that will come, and we would shoot it out to the public. And a lot of times people gravitate towards brand recognition. So even though they may know my company, let's say they're interested in the other corporation, but because we collaborated, now we have a larger pool of people that we can pick and choose from.
Oh, really? Unicorn. So you don't have any type of horror stories, anything like that within?
No.
Anything crazy happening to you?
Nope.
Never.
No, I have horror stories with the resumes I've seen.
Oh, Jesus.
I've had horror stories with first interviews.
What happened on during the interview?
Oh my God, I don't know.
You don't gotta say no names. No face, no case. No face, no case.
I've had a lot of interesting people show up to my office. There was one time, because like when we take the pop screen, we have to place you in the computer room. And so one of the ladies that I interviewed, and she seemed great. She seemed sane. She stole a mouse and ran out the office. It's just an example.
After the assessment?
Yeah, so I'm like, why is she taking so long to complete this pop?
Yeah.
So I go into the computer room and I see her and she's looking at me and she's looking at the computer and she's looking at me and she's looking at the computer. And I'm like, okay, I guess she needs some more time. Like, I don't want to make her feel like I'm trying to rush her. I come back and I see her run down the hallway and I'm like, where's she going? And someone said, oh, she stole some of the computer equipment. We caught up to her and she stole a mouse. So you see crazy stuff like that.
That's
more often than not.
I'm assuming that's why we have trackpads now, so keep it attached to the computer. So, all right, let's say I'm somebody and I need a career. Let's say I want to be a nurse or something like that, and I come to you and I say, Jeannie, Miss Santiago, all right, my name is Brenton. I would like help. I would like you to help me out with getting this career. What would you do step by step? Like,
well, that's actually what I do with my mentees. So I've been working with the military for over 10 years. I come from a military family. So I volunteer for career readiness. And a lot of my veterans, they are interested in all different kinds of industries. So through that process, I've learned quite a bit. So number one, nursing, hard skill, right?
Yeah.
So it's technical.
Yeah.
So you have to go through the training and the development. I think the way that I would help someone like that, my first bet would be to reach out to anyone that I have within my work, within my network, because I do have quite a few medical people, and see where I can make that introduction, because we have a heavy influence in networking. We're always constantly telling them network. Even when you go on LinkedIn and you look at a job description, usually they'll show you who published it, and that would be an HR representative. So we always recommend, hey, send a note. Say that you applied to this position. You're super interested in this role. Is it possible for me to take you out for a coffee or a virtual coffee? Whatever is easiest for yourself. In addition to that, we always show them how to find those people, because sometimes it's not so blatantly obvious. So what I would recommend, let's say someone wants to work at a specific hospital, right?
Yeah.
I would say, hey, go on LinkedIn, look up everyone who works at that hospital, reach out to a few of them, see who bites, and offer to take them out for coffee.
Yeah, that's true. So see, everything here at Everything NYC podcast, we advise you to be social, to go out there, put your best foot forward, network. You can't just sit at home or just be a monk and hide away. You have to go out there and be active. Now, speaking of that, some people, I mean, a lot of people, especially in this generation, I don't know if COVID did this. I blame COVID and like the internet, but some people lack social skills. They really don't know how to communicate, talk, like, see, like this, they don't know how to talk face to face. Like they'll be here face to face on the interview and like just freeze up, but they'll be good candidates. So what do you say for people like that? Because some people don't know what to do.
I think that's where my expertise comes into play, because usually what I do is I'll test someone out before the interview begins, right? So that allows them to become a little more comfortable. It takes away a little more of the nervousness. So I would begin by just saying, hey, how's your day? How's the weather? Oh my God, I love your shoes.
And
that usually calms them
Exactly.
down, because they're like, okay, she's cool, right? And then I'll take them into the room, have some, like a little conversation before we jump in. So I do this for two reasons, apart from, trying to stop them from being so nervous. I want to see your social skills. So technically, the interview is happening. You just don't realize the interview is happening. And I think through that process, I already know within a minute, I'm like, this is not a good person.
Yeah.
If you can't hold a basic conversation.
There you go. Look, a lack of social skills and being a weirdo definitely negatively affects you, right? So now we're talking about the interview process. What about that first question? Tell me about yourself, right?
Yeah, that's big.
It could go in so many different
Very
directions. What do you recommend?
Well, it's an excellent opportunity to start your elevator pitch, right? And if you don't know what an elevator pitch is, I highly recommend that you look it up. It's basically a 2-minute introduction of yourself, you know, like, this is my name, this is where I'm from, this is what I've done, and this is where I'm going, and all those achievements, this is what I can do for your organization.
Yeah.
That's a great opening.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, I actually used to practice my pitch.
Really? What you used to say?
No, I'm not gonna give it out here, man. You guys got to subscribe to the Patreon to get all that, you know?
They're gonna give a little freebie, you know?
Oh no, absolutely not.
They're gonna give it. So this is a famous question we kind of ask over here. So you said how long you been in? You said 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time, right?
That's a very long time.
That's a very long time. So that means you're pretty seasoned and stuff. So the main thing I want to know is from looking at you right now, what that money looking like? Because I'm seeing legs, I'm seeing ankles, I'm seeing tattoos, I'm seeing hair, Fenty.
Well,
I see
obviously,
chains,
when
nails.
I'm in the office,
Give me
I
numbers.
am suited up.
Give me numbers.
You're not going to see the tattoos or anything like that. My demeanor is completely different because it's a very professional setting.
Really?
When it comes to recruitment, it really depends on the organization, because I've met recruiters that make probably 60,000, and then you have other recruiters like myself, very expensive. We're not. Let's just say I'm a homeowner. That's all you really need to know. Okay.
You're looking like me.
But I am. Yeah, I'm very expensive, but that's because I have the skills, I have the knowledge. Not only that, I also have the relationships, which is extremely important when you're a recruiter, because the number one thing we're always doing is looking for people. So if I have large access to people, corporations will pay you more because you have like that book of business.
Yeah, even so you said 60, that's still above the average. So 60 is still good for a lot of people.
Yeah, it depends who you are.
Yeah, it depends on your lifestyle and stuff
I'm
like
expensive.
that. Yeah, I see.
And there's a few different approaches you could take your career, right? You could recruit for a large corporation, or maybe like a headhunting agency. That's another
Great
route.
question.
Which one do you recommend?
It really depends on your preference, right? So if you're a headhunter, right? I've known people that are headhunters. They have to deal with the nonsense from different corporations. Anytime you're dealing with people, you always have to deal with nonsense, right? That's where your temperance really showcases itself. If you don't know how to deal with people and also how to micromanage your emotions, I would not say to go into recruitment, because you have to have a thick skin. You also have to be very intuitive in your approach. But with headhunters, they have to deal with representatives within the corporation. They have to deal with people like me, right? And that's traditionally for very specialized roles. So let's say we're looking for a COO, you're going to go through a headhunter. So for them, it's a little bit different. They act as the middleman. Whereas if you're a recruiter in-house for a corporation, you have a listing of different kinds of roles, and you're only responsible for working with that one corporation. Also, headhunters tend to be mom and pop shops. So they're smaller. So if you're the type of person that enjoys having the ability to be creative and to have a little more flow and not wear just one particular hat, I would recommend the smaller mom and pop shop headhunting type of firms in comparison to working with a corporation. Everything is very uniformed. The rules are already set. You wear one hat. You do not overstep your position. And if you are that kind of person where you want to know what the rules are and you don't want to be fluid or creative, I would say stick with the corporation.
And then let's say if you're at a major corporation, how do you advance, right? Like, so let's say, how do you get recognized for some excellent work? Like, is it just basically filling in all your positions for the year? Is that how someone stands up?
Well, it really depends on the organization, right? Because once again, you have different, like for instance, I've worked with a different firm, and logistically, they function completely different, right? So with that particular firm, you're basically on your own, right? They just want you to do this, that's it. There's no recognition if you're doing a great job with them. However, when it came to this firm in particular, because it is a larger firm, it's actually one of the top firms, I noticed that they like to give the accolades. They like to give you a pat in the back when you're doing something right. It's more of a synergy. So I think understanding your environment is critical, and understanding if you're going to move up, if you're going to receive the support system, and if you're going to be recognized for your good work. Because everything you do when it comes to recruitment falls down to numbers, right? They want to see how many people are you bringing in, how many people were interviewed, what is the fallout rate, right? Because once again, you're going through a 7-part process until you're hired. So they want to see, okay, this person fell off by the third portion, right? What's going on with the third portion? It's my situation to be that problem solver, right? So, numbers. At the end of the year, when we make our annual report and they look at my numbers, that's when they dictate, okay, you did a fabulous job. Let's get you a little gift or give you some recognition and send out like a newsletter to the whole organization nationwide to let them know, hey, this is what you're doing. And then what they would traditionally do is actually place you like on a webinar with other recruiters so they can hear what were some of the strategies that you implemented that you can share so we can all build together.
In your opinion, do you think the process is a bit broken?
No, the process is not broken. It goes back to the resume.
Goes back to resume?
You have people that are using one resume and they're shipping it all over the place. And it's like you are not showcasing the skills that are relevant to the role. That's the problem number one.
Okay.
Another problem is people not getting out there, right? You have to be hungry. You want a position, you got to showcase that you want that position. And the number one way, statistically, people get hired is through referrals. So reaching out to someone who works within the organization and saying, hey, can we have a coffee? More often than not, will direct you to the right person and will also vouch for you. And traditionally, a corporation will turn around and say, you want to know something, this person vouches for you, we'll bring you on board. In addition to that, there's a lot of incentive programs corporations give to their employees for referrals.
Okay.
In addition to that, I would say a lot of people are just not mindful to the roles that they're applying to. So what does that mean? When you look at a role, right? For instance, partner, right? What partner means at one organization means something completely different to another organization. So a lot of people will see a role and say, oh, yeah, I'm a good fit for that. Not understanding within that company, it means something completely different than what you're assuming. So I see that a lot where people will say, oh, yeah, I have the perfect skills. Why am I not being called for that? Because the details of that role are not what you think it is. So understanding the role that you are applying to and understanding which corporation it applies to.
It almost sounds like you got to have something like a template and then just specify it to whichever company and just fill in the blanks.
It's called the master resume.
Okay.
So master resume is where you put every single thing that you have ever done. So when you are customizing that resume, you are copying and pasting. And then once again, going into the job description, looking at the requirements, taking any keywords, throwing it in there. If they're saying, hey, we need someone who understands Python, and you know Python better be on your resume, right? Even though it seems like a common sense thing, but you will not believe how many times where, I've seen a resume and I'm kind of like, but they're a referral. And then I'll have that first interview and I'm like, hold on, why didn't you put any of this stuff in your resume? So that happens quite a bit.
Common sense ain't common, I'll tell you that, man. Yeah, I mean, you're dropping a lot of gems, giving a lot of information because a lot of people really don't know these things, as you can see, and this is why they drop the ball. They'll have all the credentials, everything, but then drop the ball when it comes time to get into the game.
I think a lot of it has to do with not understanding the system, and that's where you see a lot of the frustration as to, hey, I'm applying to 20 different jobs. How come no one is calling me? Well, you look at your resume. Are you having any of the keywords in there? Are you reaching out to people? Are you learning everything that there is to know about that company? Because one of the questions that will come up in a first interview is, what do you know about X, Y, and Z company? Or why do you want to work at X, Y, and Z company? Because that's going to tell me if you just applied just to apply, or because you want to be here.
You just want a job.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you get a lot of those people too.
Yeah. You gotta be a go-getter.
If people need some advice, how could they get in touch with you?
My LinkedIn,
Gotcha.
Jeannie Santiago,
Straight business.
or maybe social media.
Gotcha.
You know, just send me a note because it's like private. But if you send me a note and say, hey, I need some help with my resume, I will be more than happy to help people, because I understand as a recruiter, everyone has different preferences as a recruiter. So some recruiters like things like this and other ones, you know, like it this way, but there is like a formula to follow. So if I can help someone do that, I'll be more than happy to do so.
You can see how serious they are.
Exactly.
Hit you up randomly. Like,
If you're reaching out to me, then that means you're serious.
yeah.
Yeah.
So my IG is Jeannie, JeanNie 356.
Okay, gotcha. And then from there, you're gonna send your rates.
Yeah, just send me a note, and then I'll know, you know, like you're reaching out to me because of the resume.
No, and then from there, you're gonna send like your rates, or is this like pro
Oh,
bono
no,
type of thing?
free.
Okay, look at that. All
Absolutely
right.
not.
Pro bono out
Hey,
here. Okay.
amazing.
I understand how hard it is to find a position. In addition to
Alright.
that,
That's
this
real.
whole process of finding a job is just as stressful as moving, as death. All these major changes. Oh yeah, they
It is
did
stressful.
a study.
It is stressful.
They did a study on that.
I've been there.
So being in the job market is incredibly stressful. So if I can help someone find their dream job, let's go.
That's
Alright.
that's amazing. Yeah, that's very good because most people won't do it for free. They want something, some type of compensation, anything.
I'm
Pretty
fine
much.
in the finance department. Don't worry
I
about
say,
it.
yeah, she looks expensive. I'm seeing angles right now. Broke people don't show angles, man. I'll tell you that.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you for joining us and having this conversation with us. So, just to give a brief summary of everything that we discussed, if you're out there currently looking, be intentional. Be intentional and have a plan, right? Always go in with a game plan. Think about, well, first, it all starts about looking in the mirror and thinking about your strengths, your weaknesses, and what exactly do you bring to the table. And those strengths, you need to highlight them to make sure the entire world can clearly see them, right? It's so easy for us to think like, oh, I'm this amazing person and I should be recognized and acknowledged. But is that translating over to other people?
I can't see it.
Right. So be intentional, have a plan, look in the mirror and perform that self-assessment. And then from there, when you start looking at positions, the people that are going to stand out are the people that are really serious and taking the extra steps. Those are the people that are getting in front of the decision makers, right? Because it's easy to get on your laptop and apply to 100 different jobs while you're sitting at home. But the people that are really going to get recognized are the people that have a true passion for the company, for the role, and for the industry.
Step out.
All right, and that's it.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Very
That's
welcome.
it. So
Very welcome.
I think this was a great conversation. And stay tuned for some more amazing content. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. God bless. Man.